This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best online retailer for Magic the Gathering singles and sealed product, and GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source for Magic the Gathering news and content.
Hi, I'm David, and this is my Ghave Guru of Spores commander deck. Starting off with Ghave. Ghave is a 0/0 Fungus Shaman, costs 2, black, green, and white. Enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 token, +1/+1 counters. Has 2 abilities. The first one, pay 1 colorless, remove a +1/+1 counter from any creature you control. Put a 1/1 green sapling onto the battlefield. And the second ability is pay 1 colorless, sacrifice a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. Any, be it yours or not. Starting off with the lands, there are 34 lands. Reliquary Tower gives you no max hand. Inkmoth Nexus, it's a infect flying manland. Temple of the False God. Vault of the Archangel, because it offers lifelink and death touch to all creatures I control, so it is an excellent way to somewhat board wipe your opponent's attacking creatures. Grim Backwoods gives you draw and is a sack engine. Gavony Township, it offers more +1/+1 counters for Ghave to remove and thus creates, it's an indirect way to create tokens. Vitu-Ghazi, the city tree, gives you tokens. Basic lands, 1 plains, 2 swamps, 2 forests. Oran-Rief the Vastwood, it works as a forest, so to speak, gives you green mana. However, it can also give +1/+1 counters to green creatures that have entered the battlefield this turn. Bojuka Bog, it's a grave-hating land, so always nice. The 3 pain lands, Caves of Koilos, Llanowar Wastes, and Brushlands. The 3 taplands, Sunpetal Grove, Woodland Cemetery, and Isolated Chapel. And the 3 shocklands, Temple Garden, Overgrown Tomb, and Godless Shrine. To add just a bit more manpower, so to speak, to the deck, another manland, Stirring Wildwood. Onto the Trilands, Mana Confluence, Opal Palace, because it can give more +1/+1 counters to Ghave, this is an excellent land. Grand Colosseum, Sandsteppe Citadel, Transguild Promenade, Command Tower, Murmuring Bosk, City of Brass, Rupture Spire. Onto the creatures. We begin with Dryad Arbor, the 34th land. It's a forest and a creature. It can be fetched by any tutors like Green Zenith, Summoner's Pact, or Worldly Tutor. Michaeus the Lunarch. He works as an Hydra as well. X and a white, enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. Tap him, put a +1/+1 counter on him. Or tap him, remove a +1/+1 counter from him, and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So it's like another Gavony Township. Deathrite Shaman, it's one of the most versatile Grave Hate cards. Plus, he has an interesting interaction with another card, we'll see. Rhys the Redeemed, infamously known for creating loads and loads of tokens with his first ability. His second ability, 6, tap, put, for each creature token you control, put a token into play that's a copy of that creature. So he basically doubles your tokens for 6. Herald of Anafenza. He is one of Ghave's best friends since he both generates tokens and +1/+1 counters. So, yeah, it's perfect for the deck. Sakura-Tribe Elder, it's ramp. Gyre Sage. Considering Ghave's ability, I can simply sack loads of creatures, load this guy with +1/+1 counters, then tap him and generate insane amount of mana. She's brilliant. Scavenging Ooze, +1/+1 encounters, life gain, and grave hate. Nezumi Graverobber and its flip side, Night Eyes the Desecrator. Nezumi Graverobber, it's a 2/1 for 2. You can pay 2, 1 and a black, to exile a target card from an opponent's graveyard. If that graveyard is empty after you exile that card, you can flip Nezumi Graverobber and you get Night Eyes, the Desecrator, which is a 4/2, and for 5 you can put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So you can just rummage through everyone's graveyard and pick a creature for 5. Instant speed if you want to. Twilight Drover, 3, it's a 1/1 spirit. Anytime a creature token you control dies, you put 1 +1/+1 counter on him. Then you can pay 2 and a white, remove a +1/+1 counter from him, and you put 2 1/1 white flying spirits. He's a recycling machine. And works wonders with this girl. Teysa, Orzhov's Scion. 3 1 white black for a 2/3. Sacrifice 3 white creatures, exile target creature. And whenever a black creature you control dies, you put a 1/1 white flying spirit onto the battlefield. Ring any bells? Every time you sacrifice a creature, 3 creatures for Teysa, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on Twilight Drover. You pay 6. You put 4 spirits, which in turn will be sent to Teysa, which can then kill them to exile a creature. It's a good combo to wipe out problematic creatures. Eternal Witness. It's just brilliant. 3 for 2/1. As it enters the battlefield, you take a card from your graveyard and put it into your hand. Erebus, God of the Dead. Prevents anyone from gaining life except you. And for 2, 1 black and 2 life, you draw a card. Hero of Bladehold. It's another producer of white tokens for Teysa in order to exile my opponent's creatures. This guy wasn't supposed to be here, but well, since he's here. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. He is just a very versatile walker. For 4, enters with 3 loyalty. +1, you put a 1/1 vampire with lifelink. -2, you gain an emblem that says your creatures receive +1/+0. And -6, you destroy up to 3 creatures and or walkers. For every creature and or planeswalker that touches the graveyard via this way, you get them. So you can basically steal your opponent's planeswalkers and creatures. Back to the creatures. Archangel of Thune. 5 for a 3/4 flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, it does a Gavony Township onto your creatures. So, for example, if you have Deathrite Shaman onto the battlefield, you gain 2 life. This guy gives you +1/+1 counters to all the creatures you control. Plus, he enables himself if he blocks or attacks. Kalonian Hydra. And it's a Hydra. And it is 5 for a 0/0 trample. It enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters, and when it attacks, it doubles the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So, just bonkers with Ghave. Or this guy, Inkmoth. 5 for a 4/4, Devour 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a 1/1 green Saproling for each +1/+1 counter on Inkmoth. With Ghave, you can then sack those Saprolings, put more +1/+1 counters on Inkmoth, and then get more Saprolings, which you can then kill in order to feed this guy. Bonkers card. World Queller. He basically does a Martyr's Bond on my upkeep. It's 5 for a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may choose a card type. If you do, each player sacrifices a permanent of that type. Oops. Acidic Slime. 5 for a 2/2, Death Touch. As it enters the battlefield, you destroy a land, artifact, or enchantment. One of my win cons, Skitterix the Blight Dragon. It's a 5 for a 4/4 flying infect. He can gain haste and be regenerated, respectively for 1 and 2 black. And he has infect. Sometimes, in some playgroups, people don't like the infect rule and ask to make it 15 poison counters. I have no issues with that, because this guy, Ghave and tokens equals, I swing with this guy plus +1/+1 counters on him. Grave Titan, he generates loads of tokens. Runescar Demon, 7 for a 6/6 flying. When he enters the battlefield, he makes a tutor for anything. Avenger of Zendikar, 7 for a 5/5, enters the battlefield, puts 0 and 1 green plant tokens equal to the number of land you control. It has landfall. When its landfall trigger occurs, you put a +1/+1 counter on each plant token you control. Just another bonkers card. Sheoldred controls those Voltron decks and gives you recursion, and has Swamp Walk. Aleshnorn prevents other token decks from being too annoying, and empowers my own tokens. Ashen Rider, this guy actually, and some other ETBs, but this guy in particular, and if I'm not mistaken, 3 other cards, makes an infinite I exile your entire board combo. It's a 8 for a 5/5 flying. When it enters the battlefield or dies, exile target permanent. I'll put it here to the side so then I can explain you the combo. Avacyn, Angel of Hope, 8 for an 8/8 flying vigilance. Everything I control is indestructible. She's just the no, I don't like your board wipe card. Then Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, 10, it's a 12/12. When you cast him, not when he enters the battlefield, you draw 4 cards, Annihilator 4. When it goes to the battlefield from anywhere, you shuffle your graveyard and it into your deck. His big brother, Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, it's the same thing, however it's 11 for a 10/10, Annihilator 4. When you cast him, you destroy target permanent, and he is indestructible. Onto the instance, Court of Calling. With all the Suprolings you are generating with Ghave, usually you can go get Avacyn, for example, in response to a board wipe, for free or for 1 or 2 mana. Crossing Grip, the best artifact and enchantment removal in Magic. Beast Within, best removal in green. Utter End, this card is brilliant. It's a somewhat, I don't know, better, worse version of Vindicate. Onto the sorceries. Green Sun Zenith. You can go fetch Dryad Arbor for 1 green, and you get this guy into your deck for another use. The Black Brother, that does -1/-1 counters on every creature on the battlefield. Can be kind of annoying with this deck. Ramp, Cultivated in Kadam's Reach. Demonic Collusion, it's a tutor that you can buy back, discarding 2 cards. Increasing Ambition, it's a tutor, if you pay its flashback cost, you tutor up 2 cards. Austere Command, the most flexible board wipe in Magic, I believe. Tooth and Nail is tutors up to 2 creatures, and then you can put up to 2 creatures from your hand onto the battlefield. You don't have to put the creatures you have searched with it onto the artifacts. Soul Ring. Skull Clamp for clamping all those 1/1 tokens and drawing. Carnage Altar to draw. Phyrexian Altar is another piece of that infinite combo. You sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Chromatic Lantern. Mimic Vat is a grave hate tool in a way, however it can also help you. Because, for example, you kill your own Eternal Witness, you stamp it here, and then every turn you have an Eternal Witness. And you can clear your own graveyard. Careful, when this guy gets destroyed, the creature that's imprinted on it gets permanently exiled, which is annoying. Cauldron of Souls. Tap, choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains Persist until the end of the turn. Third piece of the infinite combo. Eldrazi Monument is Avacyn's sister, so to speak. Younger, stupid sister. Though it forces you to sacrifice a creature at the beginning of your upkeep, gives +1/+1, flying and indestructible to all your creatures. And the Chrome's Memorial. All my creatures are Little Chromis. Onto the enchantments. Bitter Blossom, Phyrexian Arena, Awakening Zone, Pernicious Deed, the Recurring Board Wipe, Grave Pact, Catharsis Crusade. There is some confusion about this card sometimes, but whenever a creature you control enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, including the creature that has entered the battlefield. And it's the final piece of the infinite combo, Doubling Season, just because it's a good support card and helps the deck in every way. Privileged Position, all my things have hexproof. Primeval Bounty, this is an incredible and very flexible enchantment. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you put a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. When you cast a non-creature spell, you put 3 +1/+1 constant target creature. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life. So if you have Archangel of Thune, you get a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. The Edgebridge Chant. Its first ability is not that great, but the second ability is brilliant. It's 6. When it enters the battlefield, you put the top 10 cards of your deck into your graveyard. However, at the beginning of your upkeep, you choose a card at random from your graveyard. If it's a creature, you put it onto the battlefield. If it's not a creature, you put it into your hand. It's a brilliant recursion engine. Onto the Planeswalkers. We have Johnny, Mentor of Heroes. His first enters the battlefield with 4, costs 5, 3 green-white. You can put 3 +1/+1 counters distributed as you wish among the creatures you control. The second +1 ability is, you look at the 4 top cards of your deck, you may reveal an aura creature or planeswalker from among them and put it into your hand. The rest goes into the bottom of your deck. Garruk Primal Hunter draws cards, puts beasts, generates worms. Vraska the Unseen, it protects herself actually, and destroys everything but lands, which is very good. Elspeth Sun's Champion, her first ability is, it literally says, if you have Teysa or Zoth Scion onto the battlefield, it says exile target creature, because it puts 3 1/1 white soldiers. For Teysa you need to sacrifice 3 white creatures. And the last card of the deck, Garruk Apex Hunter, or Predator, I'm sorry. Destroys walkers, gives you 3/3 Death Touch creatures, destroys other creatures, gaining you life in the process, and his -8 ability, which is kind of stupid, but yes. The target opponent gains an emblem with, every time a creature attacks this player, it gets +5/+5 until the end of the turn. So it paints a giant target on someone's forehead. Sometimes it can paint it on your forehead. Now for the infamous I exiled your whole board combo. I hope I have enough room here. Well, the combo is very simple. Oops. It's Catharsis Crusade here. You have Ashen Rider on the battlefield. you tap Cauldron of Souls and give him Persist. Then you sack him to Phyrexian Altar. Its dying trigger exiles a permanent. Then Persist trigger enters the stack. Ashen Rider re-enters the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter, which triggers Catharsis Crusade, which gives it a +1/+1 counter. Those two cancel each other out. He still has Persist, because this gives Persist until the end of the turn, so you can just sack it again and exile another permanent. Oh, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile another permanent. So you can simply do this over and over and over and over and over again, exiling your opponent's entire board, and then you just swing. It has its weaknesses. Any of these pieces can be destroyed, as usual. However, if you run, I don't know, whoops, this thing, Privileged Position, which gives hexproof to all your permanents, or even if you want to be really a nasty guy and have Avacyn on the battlefield, which will give indestructible to all your permanents, herself included, then you are free to just exile everyone's board and feel free to just kill everyone. The next turn, if you didn't kill your opponent or all your opponents, you can just tap Cauldron of Souls, give Persist to Ashen Rider, and repeat. I only found this combo when I was at the final stages of designing the deck. This has been my Ghave Guru of Spores Commander deck. Please subscribe to CMDR decks and favorite.